going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Critical Overlord here. We're going to be talking about Scream 7 in this video here today. So Daniel RPK is reporting that he's heard, well, before I go any further, if you don't want to know anything specific about Scream 7 that could potentially ruin the movie for you going off of the title, the thumbnail, what I'm about to get into, then you shouldn't be watching this. But if you were waiting in the queue as I was watching, many of you wait for this video to air, then you likely don't care, and let's just get right on into it. But you've been warned for those of you who don't, and if you're watching, it's your fault now, not mine. Daniel RPK again is reporting that he's heard Scream 7 has more than 2 killers again, just like we saw with Scream 6. Now, this might cause some eyes to start rolling, but like I always say, execution is everything. Immediately assuming it'll be as crowded as Scream 6's finale is something many fans will want to do. However, I have posted theories in the past highlighting how more than 2 killers can work without betraying the intimacy that is felt during the reveals of that OG trilogy. Instead of saving all of your ghost faces for the end to be revealed and have all of them talking at once and making it feel a little bit overwhelming to the viewer, start revealing a couple midway. I say a couple since we should consider the possibility of us getting a cult angle. That cult angle could in fact be happening. Even if there are only 5 killers, just for a hypothetical, reveal 3 before we get to our final 2. Then you still have the traditional finale. Hell, you could do a final 1 type of scenario where everyone protagonist-wise knows how many killers there are, and you slowly build up the mystique of the inevitable final boss. There's just different ways to do this, ways that I'd argue should be done so it stands out not only from what we just got with Scream 6, but from every other sequel that's come since the original film. Even you can include that original film too. We've never had multiple killers who are all working together purposely reveal themselves because they want to get caught. I say purposely due to the fact that I would find it to be a bit out of character, or a bit of a detractor, I should say, to the character of Ghostface. His role as a threat, or their role as a threat, if you start having the protagonists unmasking them slowly throughout the film as if we are actually watching an episode of Scooby-Doo. Instead of doing that, preserve the mystique. I think it'd be much more badass to have Ghostface taking out characters, take their mask off, reveal themselves obviously, let the cops take them in, and then keep us in suspense, keep us curious. You could even have interrogation scenes where the investigators assigned to the case try to get answers from these individuals, but all the unmasked killers do is give these lines: "We're not finished yet." So again, leaving us in suspense, heightening our curiosity around their motive, etc. How do you guys feel about potentially having more than 2 killers again? I'm sure there's a few of you out there who think that they just need to stick to 1 or 2. All I can say is I prefer anything but 1 or an excessive amount. That's all I can say. Anything in between should work for me as long as you, again, present it on screen well enough. It really wouldn't be that hard to do if you, again, take your time, map out something cohesive, something coherent, something that you can identify will not overwhelm your audience. I know a lot of people felt that with Scream 6, while you didn't mind there being 6 or 3 killers, the problem was the fact that they were all revealed at once, so it made the finale feel overwhelming to you guys. It felt like they were competing for screen time and competing for reasons to speak, and it just was a little unfocused at times to some people, which to me, on a rewatch, I can see where you're coming from. It was a little bit rushed as a finale. I still thought the finale was fine the way it was. I do prefer some of the other movies, not gonna lie, but the whole batshitness of it still gets me every time I watch Scream. 5 killers in total should be fine. 2 of them could out themselves after the opening scene, let us know they aren't working alone, and now Sidney and the rest of the town are left waiting and wondering when the alleged game will continue. Ultimately, I'd build to a reveal centered around parasocial relationships with Sidney Prescott at the center of it all. Each member can feel she has betrayed what she stands for. How she has done this? How has she done this? Well, like I've talked about in countless other videos, she's done this by continuing to associate herself with the likes of Gale Weathers, endorsing some of Gale's recent behavior, and for marrying someone like Kincaid, who these killers don't like due to the way he acts towards Sidney at times. Now, of course, that last part will come from her bestie, because I think her friend should be one of these parasocial maniacs. She would try to talk Sid out of her relationship with Kincaid, not in a way that was so obvious and perplexing to Sid, but a little bit of a nudge, because she would take note of Mark's tone. She was very nitpicky at Mark and just didn't think he deserved Sid because of this. And of course, Sid being able to overlook all of that and wanting to work and keep her man happy was able to, of course, work within her marriage. Her and Mark don't have a toxic relationship. We're not going to explore anything like that, but it's just nitpicking things. She didn't like how Mark talked to Sidney. And so because Sidney wouldn't cut off Mark, wouldn't cut off Gail, this friend, this neighbor, who again is supposed to be played by Anna Camp, I believe, who's announced to, well, we haven't found out who she's going to play. It's just assumed she's going to be playing the friend because she seems to fit the mold of who the friend would be based off a description that Daniel shared in the past. Because she wouldn't cut these people off, the friend became completely unhinged. She's looked up to Sidney for so long, something again that she has not shared in depth with Sidney. She just pretends to be this normal next door neighbor who is completely not a freak in private when it comes to all things Sidney, but we're going to find out she is a big fan of Sidney, and she feels betrayed that she couldn't get Sidney to bend to her will and live up to her standards for Sidney. And again, just a way to commentate on parasocial relationships, how we continue to pedestalize politicians, musicians, other artists, actors, actresses, doesn't matter, people we do not know, holding them to such high standards and then doing so much of this, spending all of our time doing this, that when they finally don't align with something we thought they would have, it's like a culture shock to us. It's earth shattering. It sends us into cardiac arrest. Just highlighting some of the, maybe what you could argue is mental instability of some folks who are like this. So I don't have a problem with something like this playing out on screen. So because of all this, the friend just now thinks that Sidney doesn't deserve the peace she's earned. She doesn't deserve her family. She doesn't deserve Mark. Mark doesn't deserve her. And she's going to interrupt that peace to remind Sidney of everything that she had worked so hard to attain, and that she doesn't deserve it because you refuse to cut off some toxic individuals in your life. Also, on top of that, she had recruited other people who Sidney, or who believes Sidney herself, if she ceases to exist, that will put a stop to all things Ghostface. It can be something as simple as that, something that's a little bit fresh, something that puts a spin on something we've seen in the past when it comes to the likes of Roman and Jill, something that also is commentating on parasocial relationships with celebrities and other entities out there that seems to be a plague for many online. Now, let me know what you guys think about all this down in the comment section below. If you haven't already, of course, make sure you go ahead and subscribe, turn on post notifications so you never miss a video. In the description, I have links to my social media accounts. I am on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can message me there, of course. Let me know if there's any movies, news, or reviews you'd like me to cover in the future. And with all that in mind, guys, I will see you in the next video.